In this lecture, we will start our intermediate level lectures. We want to create a schedule for a new project. The first thing to do is we need to set our calendar. There are few different ways to set the calendar in Microsoft Project. These settings should match each other, otherwise we may encounter some problems. We will see what happens if these settings do not match each other in the following lectures. Let's start with General Calendar Settings. To do that, we will go to the Project Options page, which we have seen in our first lectures. We will first click on the green File tab. Then, we will go to the Options. Here, in the Project Options dialog box, we will click on Schedule. We will make the general calendar settings in this group. We will first do the working day and working hour settings. Let's first select if the settings will apply to this specific project or to all projects. We want the same settings for all of the projects we will create throughout the course. Thus, I will select All New Projects. This way, all new projects will have the same settings. After completing this course, you can come back to these settings and change them according to your needs. Now, let's set our working days and hours. For our project, the only holiday will be Sunday. The working hours will be set as 9 hours per day, including Saturday. Since we assume that our project is in United States, the first day of the week should be Sunday. If the box on the right side of Week Starts On is not set for Sunday, we need to click here and select Sunday. We will see how to make Saturday as a working day in our following lectures about Change Working Time. Fiscal year starts in January for this project. We should be careful that January is selected over here. We will set the default daily working hours. As I have mentioned, in this project, our daily working hours will be 9 hours. Let's assume that work starts at 8 a.m. and ends at 6 p.m. We will make our settings accordingly. Default start time is 8 a.m. This matches with our scenario, and we will not change anything here. If we start to work at 8 a.m. and have 9 working hours per day and planning a 1-hour lunch break, the end time should be set to 6 p.m. As I said, we have 9 hours per day. Since we work 9 hours per day and 6 days per week, our total weekly working hour will be 54 hours. Hours per week will be set as 54. Days per month changes depending on the month, but we will enter an estimate value here. We will consider each month to be 4 weeks and update the monthly working days as 24. Now, we are done with the default day and hour settings. In our following lectures, we will mention about additional calendar settings. We want Show Scheduling Messages option checked. This way, if there are any inconsistencies in terms of dates, Microsoft Project will warn us with a message. Below that, there is an option for our resources. We can either select percentage or decimal option. For example, if a task requires 5 workers and the percentage option is selected, we need to assign 500% of this resource to this task. If it is selected as decimal, then we will enter 5 instead of 500%. You will better understand this when we talk about assigning resources. I prefer the decimal option. Now, we have the scheduling options for this project. We will talk about most of these settings in the future when we talk about assigning resources. But we need to change 2 settings here. First, we will set New Tasks Created option as auto-scheduled. But before doing that, we will look how MS Project does the calculations when the manually schedule option is selected. Please be sure that manually scheduled is selected and go back to our main page by clicking OK. In the following lectures, we will see how to enter our activities and how to link them. But for now, to understand how manually scheduled and auto-scheduled settings work, we will enter 3 activities, let's say Activity A, Activity B, and Activity C. We will write A, B, and C respectively in the fields under the task name column. We will enter numerical values into the duration field of these activities to assign the durations. Let's assume that all the activities are completed in 5 days. Now, let's link these activities. To do that, we will write 1 under the predecessor column of B and 2 under the predecessor column of C. This way, we are defining the path from A to B and B to C. Here, I would like to note that for now, we only want to see the differences between manually scheduled and auto-scheduled options. Therefore, I don't mention any activity entry or linking subject here in this lecture. We will see these subjects in our following lectures in a very detailed way. If you have noticed, as we enter the values and link the activities, each activity is represented as a blue bar on the Gantt chart. In our first lectures, when we were talking about the critical path method, we have already explained this representation. Accordingly, when activity A is completed, activity B starts, and when activity B is completed, activity C starts. When we look at the start and end dates of the activities, we can see that they are compliant with the links. Until now, we didn't have any problem. Now, let's focus on activity B and activity C. When activity B is completed, activity C starts. dates are compliant with this link. But what if we increase the duration of B from 5 to 10? Let's try this. The end date of B is revised. But what about the activity C? We expect to see 5 days of delay on the starting date of activity C since the end day of activity B is delayed for 5 days. But as you see, there is no change. When manually scheduled option is selected, Microsoft Project does not operate automatically. This is why. Let's do the same operation when the auto-scheduled option is selected. We will go back to the Project Options dialog box. Let's change Manually Scheduled option to Auto-Scheduled and click on OK. Now, our new activities will be auto-scheduled. Let's create activities D, E, and F again. Do you notice the difference here in the task mode field? Manually scheduled activities had light blue pins, but these new activities now have blue bars. Blue bars represent that these tasks are auto-scheduled. Now, we will create the links between these auto-scheduled activities. Let's write 5 in the predecessor field of E and 6 into the predecessor field of C. As I mentioned before, we will talk about this linking process in our next lectures in a very detailed manner. Let's set the duration of the activities for 5 days. As you see, all the dates are as they should be. This means E starts after D is completed and F starts after E is completed. In our previous example, we didn't have any problems until this stage. Now, let's change the duration of activity E to 10 days as in the previous example, and let's see what will happen. As you see, project has the reaction we were looking for. Look at the dates. All of them are calculated automatically. E comes after D and F comes after D. This example shows the importance of this setting. Since we have seen the difference between the manually scheduled and the auto-scheduled modes, we can delete these activities. We will click and hold from the top or bottom part of the activities and select all of the activities with our mouse. When all activities are selected, we will right-click and select Delete Task. Now, our example activities are deleted. We can go back to the Schedule options. Now, we will click on the New Tasks or Effort Driven option if it is unchecked. You should be careful to have the same settings as mine. default task type should be fixed units. These two options are very important since they affect the calculations of Microsoft project. We will talk about them in detail in the following lectures. Please also check the boxes below as shown on my screen. Now, let's look at other options. Schedule alerts options have two options. First one will make the Microsoft project warn us if we have entered incorrect data or the data we have entered is incompatible. We want the project to warn us, so we want this box to be checked. When we are working with our project, if we want Microsoft project to give suggestions, we will check the box below. Since I do not want to see the suggestions, I will leave this box unchecked. The following scheduling option is about calculations. By default, MS Project will automatically calculate all the project when you enter a new data. This feature helps us to see the effects of the changes immediately. If you don't want this, you need to select the Off option. Okay, here comes a question. Why wouldn't we want to use this option? Well, if your computer is not fast enough, it will take a long time to make all the calculations for thousands of activities when you enter a new data. You can choose the Off option to avoid time losses by preventing the calculation after each change. It is possible to manually calculate all the project after all the changes are completed. In our lecture, we will have few activities and our computer is fast enough, so this option will stay as on. The last title is about calculations as well. When the first option is selected here, and we update the status of a task, the status of its resources will also change. If this option is unchecked, we need to update the task and its resources separately. In our course, we will assume that our tasks and resources are parallel. Therefore, we will leave this option checked. Microsoft Project lets us to track a project inside another project. We will see how it is done in the future lectures. If this option is checked, inserted projects will be calculated like summary tasks. We will talk about summary tasks when we are entering our tasks. You can also make cost calculations in MS Project. These calculations are not detailed, but a general cost calculation can be made and tracked via MS Project. We will talk about costs in detail in the following lectures. By default, actual costs are calculated according to the task's progress percentages. If we want to change these settings, we need to uncheck the box. We can enter actual cost manually. As I have mentioned, cost calculations and tracking is not very detailed in MS Project. We can have a general cost estimation. Therefore, automatic calculation of actual cost will not be a problem. I want to open a parenthesis here. You can manually edit actual costs after the tasks are completed. Our last setting is about fixed costs. This setting will remain as prorated. This way, fixed costs will distribute linearly by default. We will talk about fixed costs in detail in our cost lectures. Now, we have completed our first schedule settings. We will click on OK button and continue to create our project plan. In the next lecture, we will make our schedule settings that opens when we click on the Change Working Time button. So, I will see you there. Thanks for watching. Hi. In the previous lecture, we did our schedule settings under the Options menu. Unfortunately, we are not done with schedule settings yet. The settings under the Options menu were the default settings. Now, we should do the settings specific to our project, which are going to be used for the calculations. In this lecture, we will do the scheduling settings that we will see when we click on the Change Working Time button. To do that, we will click on the Project tab. And then, let's click on the Change Working Time button inside of the Properties group. In this window, we will do the settings specific to our project and which are going to be used for the calculations. Working days in a week, full days, part-time days, and holidays will be set from here. First, let's begin by creating a calendar specific to our project. On the upper right corner, we will click on the Create New Calendar button. Let's give a name for this calendar. For example, let's do it Course Calendar. We have two options. We can create our calendar from scratch by selecting Create New Base Calendar option, or we can work on an existing calendar by copying it. Working on an existing calendar will save time. Therefore, let's start working by selecting an existing calendar. Let's select the Standard Calendar. This way, we will start to create our calendar by using the Standard Calendar. Above, we can see the name of our new calendar, Course Calendar. Now, we can do the specific settings for our project. First, let's set the working days and hours. To do that, let's click on the Work Weeks tab below. Now, we will click on the Details button over here. Here, in this mini dialog box, we see the current settings for this calendar. For example, the working hours for Monday is 8 a.m. to 12 a.m. and 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. Therefore, total working hours is 8 hours. If we switch to other days, we can see the current settings for each day. When we move on each of these, we can see that the working hours are the same from Monday to Friday. and there are no working hours on Saturday and Sunday, which indicates that these 2 days are non-working days. In our previous lecture, we have set our working hours from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., which corresponds to 9 hours work. Additionally, on Saturdays, we said we were working full-time. Okay, here is a very critical point. The values in the table should be same with the values in the options menu, which we did in the previous lecture. This is extremely important since if the values are different, we may encounter undesired reactions. To give an example, let's change the working hours to 18 hours per day and see what error will occur. To change the working hours, we need to click on the corresponding date. Then, select the Set Days to this specific working times option. As you see, the gray colored text is turned into black. This means we can make changes in this area now. As I mentioned before, we will enter 18 working hours to see how Microsoft Project will react. Let's change the starting time from 8 a.m. to 5 a.m. To work 18 hours per day, we need to work until 11 p.m. without any break. To do this, we will write 11 p.m. in the To field. Now, let's delete the row below. Click on the To text next to the row below. As you see, the entire row is selected. If we click on the Delete button, this row will be deleted. So, we have completed our settings for Monday. We want the same working hours until Saturday. Instead of entering the working hours one by one, we can change them at the same time. To do that, we will come on Tuesday, click and hold the left button of the mouse and select until Saturday. We can now change the working hours of these days at the same time. As we did previously, we will select Set Days to specific working times first. Then, change the working hours to 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. and delete the row below. Our working hours from Monday to Saturday is set from 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. Let's click on the OK button below and exit this dialog box. Let's click on OK again and go back to our main working area. We have completed our calendar settings, but we have not assigned this calendar to our project yet. Now, let's assign this calendar to our project. To do that, while the Project tab is selected in the ribbon, we are clicking on Project Information button inside the Properties group. Here, from the Calendar field, we are selecting our calendar, the course calendar. We have now assigned the calendar to our project. Let's go back to our main page by pressing OK. Okay, to create a new task, I am writing A under the task name column. Let's say this activity will last in 7 days. We are writing 7 in the duration field. This activity should be completed in 7 work days. At least our expectation is this way. Now, let's see how long it takes to complete this activity. The starting day is today, but the activity is completed in 4 days. Even though we have determined the duration as 7 days, the activity is completed in 4 days. As you see, when the schedule settings under the options menu and change working time settings do not match, we have a result like this. Therefore, it is extremely important to have the same settings in these two areas. Now, let's go back to change working time and correct this error. But first, let me delete this activity. We click on one and then click on the delete button. Let's go back to change working time and correct the schedule settings. We will go to the Work Weeks tab and click on the Details button. The thing we want to do here is to edit the working hours from Monday to Saturday from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Since we are working 9 hours per day, we need a 1-hour lunch break. Let's define the morning and afternoon working hours separately. Now, we will select all the days from Monday until Saturday. We will click on Set Days to these specific working times option. We will write 8 a.m. to the first column and 12 p.m. to the next column. We should write 1 p.m. and 6 p.m. below that. We have now changed the settings. Let's click on OK and exit this window. You may want to check if these settings are same as the settings under the Options menu. To do that, instead of clicking on the Options menu in the File tab, you can click on the Options button below. As you see, this is the Project Options dialog box. Now, we may check the settings from here. All of the settings are OK. So, let's close this window and continue to set our calendar. Until this point, we have set working days and hours. As you know, each year there are holidays. For example, you may have Christmas Day, New Year's Day, Independence Day in US, and etc. Each country may have different holidays. If we do not define these holidays, MS Project will think that we will work on these days and make the calculations accordingly. Then, the end date of the project will be calculated earlier than the actual ending date. We don't want such a situation. Therefore, we need to define all of the holidays on Microsoft Project. we have assumed that this project is in United States. When you are creating a real project, you need to enter the official holidays of that country. Therefore, if this was a real project, we should enter all of the official holidays for United States. But for this course, we will assume that we won't be working on New Year's Day, Independence Day, and Christmas Day only. Only these dates will be set as holidays. Let's start with the New Year's Day. Assume we won't have any work on New Year's Day and the following day. Therefore, on January 1st, 2018 and the following day, the January 2nd, we'll not have any work. To enter this information, we first click on the Exceptions tab. We enter the holidays and part-time working hours here. Click on the first row under the name column and write the name of the holiday. Then, we will determine the starting and ending date of this holiday. The starting date will be January 1st of 2018. And the ending date will be the January 2nd. Did you notice the change in the calendar above? These dates were in white color, but now they transformed into light blue. Here, we can understand that these two dates are exceptions. Since we have defined the New Year's Day, now let's define the Independence Day. Assume on the Independence Day, this is the 4th of July 2017, there won't be any work. Additionally, on July 5th, 2017, part-time work will be done in the afternoon. Have you ever seen a holiday like that? Well, I haven't. But since we want to learn the properties of Microsoft Project, it is not a problem. Let's define this holiday. By clicking the second row, we will write the name of the holiday just like in the New Year's Day. If you are on January 1st, 2018 on the calendar above, you may have a warning that says there is another exception day. It is not a problem since we will change the starting date of this holiday. Let's pick up the start date as July 4th, 2017. The end date should be July 5th, 2017. But since the 5th of July will be a part-time working day, we need to define it to a separate column of Independence Day. Therefore, we are leaving the end date as 4th of July. Now, we will define the 5th of July, the part-time working day. Let's name it Independence Day Holiday. The starting and ending date will be 5th of July. Are we done yet? Unfortunately not. Because we need to set 5th of July as a part-time working day. We will double-click anywhere on the Independence Day holiday row. We now have a new dialog box to learn. We can set the working days and hours when we double click on a date. As you see, this date is marked as non-working, but this date will be a part-time working day. Therefore, we will select the option below to determine the working times. Since we will only be working in the afternoon, we need to write 1 p.m. as the starting hour. What about the finishing time? We need to write the end time of our project, which is 6 p.m. We can set if this exception will be repeated and the number of repetitions here from the recurrence pattern and the range of recurrence. We will set this day as part-time working day for 5 years. Since this date will be recurrent yearly, we should select the recurrence pattern as yearly. Now, the recurrence pattern is yearly and it is valid for 5th of July of each year. If we enter 5 here, this part-time day will repeat itself for 5 years. Now, we have defined the part-time working day for 5 years. Let's click on OK and exit this window. We have repeated the part-time working day for Independence Day holiday as 5 years, but other holidays are only defined for 1 year. Let's change them to repeat for 5 years. Let's start with the New Year's Day. You will double click here, select recurrence pattern as yearly, and enter and after 5 occurrences. Click on OK. Let's do the same thing for the Independence Day. We will double click here, select the recurrence pattern as yearly, enter and after 5 occurrences. When we click on OK and exit this window, all exception dates will be repeated for 5 years. I want you to define an exception for Christmas Day as a homework assignment. This way, you will be practicing. I want you to define the dates to be as follows. December 25th will be a part-time working day. There won't be any work from December 26th to December 31st. And these exceptions will be repeated for 5 years. You can download the solution file before the following lecture. But first, you should try to do it yourself. Then, you can compare your results with mine. Let's click on OK and exit. So, this is the end of this lecture. In the next lecture, we will first define our project. Then, we will start to enter the activities of our project in the following lectures. See you in the next lecture then. Thanks for watching. In our previous lectures, we have seen the settings we need to do before starting to create the project plan of a project. In this lecture, we will talk about our project, which is an imaginary project. Then, in the following lectures, we will talk about how to create new tasks in Microsoft Project. We will create our new tasks according to our imaginary project. Our imaginary project will be a construction project, but don't worry, you don't have to be in the construction sector and you don't need to know the construction business to understand the concepts. Our guidelines are not specific to construction projects. They are general and applicable for any kind of project from any sector. Therefore, whether you are in the construction sector or not, this method will provide you a guideline when you are creating a project plan. Okay, assume we are working in a construction company and we are a planning engineer. Our executives are expecting us to create the project plan for this project on the screen. The question is, what should be our starting point? What do you think? Here is the answer. Our starting point will be determined by our objective. When you are creating a project plan, you need to create the activities first and then link those activities together. Therefore, our objective should be creating the activities so that we can link those activities to form a project plan. Activities are the names given to the works inside the project. For example, for a construction project, installing the doors is an activity. For a website development project, coding the communication page will be an activity. You can create hundreds, thousands, even millions of activities. I have mentioned that installing a door is an activity. This is correct. But you can generate many other activities by providing details of the door installation activity. For example, installing the door handle is also an activity. Installing the door sill is also an activity. If we go into more detail, even the tightening the screws of the door is also an activity. Thus, we can have more activities as we go deeper on a work. So, here is an important question. How much detail will be enough? Which activities should we choose for creating the project plan? Well, there are no rules about how detailed our project plan should be. But here is the critical point. We need to track our activities easily. Therefore, we need to create activities so that we can track them easily. If we have too much activity and if we cannot track them, it is meaningless to create a project plan. For example, let's go back to our door example. If you have only one staff for tracking all the progress of the project, this staff may observe if the doors are installed or not. In a smaller project, this staff may also observe if the door handles are installed or not. But in larger projects, this staff most probably cannot observe if the door handles are installed or not, since there may not be enough time to track this operation. In such a situation, we should not set the installation of the door handles as an activity. If we set it as an activity, the project will be impossible to track and all our efforts will be in vain. In short, the details of the project depend on the conditions of the project. When you are creating your own project plan, you need to determine the details depending on your work requirements. Okay, I have mentioned that a project plan may have hundreds and thousands of activities. But how can we determine these thousands of activities without skipping any of them? Well, the easiest method is to create the activities from more general to specific. Accordingly, we first handle the project as a whole. Then, we divide it into large pieces. Then, we divide these pieces into smaller pieces. We will continue this process until we reach the ideal activity breakdown. For example, for a website project, website itself will be the whole, and the pages in this website will be the smaller pieces. Then, we determine the sub-pages of these pages. We determine all the activities required for coding these sub-pages in the same manner. By doing this, we are creating the work breakdown structure of the project. To determine our activities without any missing activities, we first need to create the work breakdown structure of our project. Now, to determine our activities, let's start creating our work breakdown structure of our imaginary project. We will do that in the following lecture. So, please join me for that. Thanks for watching. Here, as you see, there are two similar buildings in our imaginary project. Here is the foundation of building A and building B. These are the first floor, second floor, and roof of building A, and first floor, second floor, and roof of building B. As we said in the previous lecture, we need to create the work breakdown structure of this project. The good news is I have created it for you. Here is our work breakdown structure. As you see, we divided our project activities into three main groups. These are excavation works, construction works, and backfilling and landscape. You don't need to know the technical meanings of these groups. Just understand the logic behind creating them. These are the most generous groups of activities, and this is the first level of our breakdown structure. Then we have subgroups under these groups. As you see, for excavation works, we have two subgroups: excavation works of building A and excavation works of building B. For construction works, we have again two subgroups: construction works of building A and construction works of building B. Under these subgroups, we have more subgroups like concrete works of building A, walls of building A, and etc. These are the third level of our breakdown structure. I would like to remind you that we are not creating our activities yet. All of the boxes you see here are the elements of our work breakdown structure. Okay, since we have our WBS created, now we can start to enter these values into our project in Microsoft Project. In order to do this, I click on the first row of the task name column and start to write the elements of our work breakdown structure. I start with the excavation works. As you see, after clicking the Enter button, duration, start and finish values are appearing automatically. Duration seems to be 1 day, and also there is a question mark at the end. This question mark tells us that this duration is given by MS Project automatically. Since we are creating our WBS elements, we have nothing to do with duration yet. Therefore, I will go on with other elements of our work breakdown structure. Under excavation works, we have two subgroups. In order to enter these groups, just click on the second row under the first row and type the name of the groups. Our first subgroup is excavation works of Building A. And our next subgroup is excavation works of Building B. Now, what happened? It seems like we have three independent tasks here. Excavation works of Building A and B should be subgroups of the excavation works task. In order to do that, we will select the second row by left clicking on the very left of the row 2 and drag it until the third row. Now we have our second and third rows selected. What will I do is, I will click on the Indent Task button. It is right here in the Schedule group. As you see, after clicking on it, Excavation Works task became bold, and Excavation Works of Building A and Building B are indented. This means these two tasks became subtasks of the bolded task. Now, let's enter the other elements of our work breakdown structure. We have construction works as a main group. Therefore, I click on the task name column of the fourth row and type construction works. As you see, the construction work task is indented, which means it is a subgroup of excavation works. It should be another main group, not a subgroup. Therefore, we need to outdent this task. In order to do this, I first click on the construction works row and then click on the outdent task button over here. It is again in the schedule task group. Now, as you see, it is outdented. Now we can add the subtasks under it. Let's start with construction works of Building A. Click on the task name column of the fifth row and type construction works of Building A. Now, select the fifth row and click on the Indent Task button in order to make it a subtask of construction works task. Let's enter the subtasks of construction works of Building A task. Concrete works of Building A, walls of Building A, plastering works of Building A, painting works of Building A, doors and windows of Building A, roof of Building A. We need to indent these last 6 tasks. Let's click on the 6th row and then drag it down until all the tasks are selected. And then click on the Indent Task button. Now, we will create construction works of Building B task and its subtasks. This time, we will create them by copying the tasks of Building A. In order to do that, let's first select the task Construction Works of Building A and its subtasks. Then, right-click and select Copy. Now, right-click on the 12th row and choose Paste. As you see, the above tasks are pasted. But these tasks seem like subtasks of the above tasks. Therefore, we need to outdent them. Just select them all and click on the Outdent Task button. Let's change the names of the tasks. Click on the task name and click on it one more time. Now, change Building A to Building B. Do the same for the rest of the tasks. Now, only backfilling and landscape task and its subtasks are left. I will leave this as a homework assignment. Please create the backfilling and landscape task and its subtasks by yourself. I have created it for the next lecture. Please compare it with yours. See you in the next lecture. In the previous lecture, we have constructed our work breakdown structure in Microsoft Project. Now, we are ready to enter our activities. Here, I would like to remind you that creating a work breakdown structure is not a must in MS Project. I mean, you may directly start to enter your activities without creating any WBS. But in order to create a more understandable project plan, you will need to group your activities. Since creating a work breakdown structure is the best way to group your activities, by creating a work breakdown structure, your project plan will be more understandable. This is why I recommend you to create your work breakdown structure first. Okay, now let's turn back to our Setting Up Tasks lecture. In this lecture, we will only enter the name of the activities. In the future lectures, we will see how to make Microsoft Project to calculate the durations by itself. I would like to enter our first activity under Excavation Works of Building A workgroup. In order to do that, I just right-click on the first row under the Excavation Works of Building A. Then, click on the Insert Task option. Let's change the activity name first. In order to do that, click on the task name of the activity once, and then click on it one more time. Let's say this is our excavation work of Building A activity. Click on Enter. As you see, our activity seems to be at the same level with Excavation Works of Building A group. Since it is an activity under this group, it should not be at the same level. Instead, it should be at the lower level. Therefore, we need to indent this activity. We know how to do that from our previous lectures. We click on the activity first and then click on the Indent Task button. As you see, excavation works of building A became bold, which is telling us that this is a group, not an activity. If the name of the activity you just entered is missing, you may need to expand the column size of the task name column. In order to do that, I hover on the line between task name and duration columns and then double click on it. This will expand the task name column automatically and you will be able to see the full name of the cells. Let's enter the other activities. I would like to create excavation work of building B activity under excavation works of building B group. Just right click on the first row under this group and then click on the Insert Task option. When changing the name of the first activity, we clicked on the task name and then clicked on it again. This time, I will show you a different way to do that. If you double click on the activity, there is a box named Task Information is opened. This box contains most of the information about the activity you have double clicked on. Here, we can change the name of the activity by entering its new value. Let's change the name as Excavation Work of Building B. And then click on OK button. As you see, the name of the activity has changed. Now we need to indent it. We click on the activity and then click on the Indent Task button. Let's enter the rest of the activities. Let's say we have two activities under Concrete Works of Building A group, named First Floor Concrete Works of Building A and Second Floor Concrete Works of Building A. I click on the first row under the Concrete Works of Building A group. In order to enter the activity, I will show you a different method. This time, I will click on the Task button here in the Insert group inside of the ribbon. Since we will create two activities, we click on this button one more time. Let's change the names. I prefer to double click on the activity to do that. And change the name of the second activity. We can indent both of the activities at the same time. In order to do that, I click and hold the left key of the mouse and drag it until both of the activities are selected. While both of them are selected, just click on the Indent Task button. As you see, both activities are indented at the same time. Now, let's do the same thing for walls of Building A. Select the first row under the Walls of Building A group. This time, I will click on the small black triangle under the button named Task. As you see, there is a new box opened. Click on the task. Since we want one more activity, do the same thing again. Let's say we have mistakenly added one more activity. We need to erase this activity. To erase it, just right-click on this activity and click on Delete Task. As you see, it is erased. Double-click on the first activity and change its name. Then, double-click on the next activity in order to change its name. Let's choose both activities and indent them. We may add 2 or more activities at the same time in Microsoft Project. It is easy. Just click and hold the left key of the mouse and drag it until 2 rows under the Plastering Works of Building A group are selected. And then click on the Task button. As you see, 2 new tasks are added at the same time. Let's change their names. Again, we will indent both of the activities at the same time. In order to create a new activity, there is another way. We may copy and paste other activities and then change their names. To do that, I select the activities First and Second Floor Plastering Works of Building A, and then click on Ctrl and C keys together. This will copy these 2 activities. Now, we will paste them under the Painting Works of Building A group. Click on the first row under this group and click on Ctrl and V keys together. As you see, we have copied 2 activities. Now, let's change their names. You know what is next. We will indent both of the activities. Okay, now let's do the same thing for doors and windows of Building A. Let's copy the 2 activities of Painting Works and paste them under the doors and windows of Building A group. Change their names. Finally, indent these activities. As you see, it is easy. Now, we will create only one activity under the roof of Building A. Right-click, Insert Task, and we will change the name. But this time, we will do it differently. Right-click on the activity and this time select Information. As you see, the Task Information window is appeared. Remember, we got the same window when we double-clicked on the activity. Now, we can change the name of the activity. Click OK. Finally, we will indent the task. As you see, we can do the same thing in different ways in Microsoft Project. All of them are doing the same thing, therefore, just do whichever you think is easy. Please enter the rest of the activities by yourself as a homework assignment. We would like to set up the activities of construction works of Building B to be same as of Building A. There will be only one activity under each of backfilling and landscaping works. After entering all the activities, you may download the solution and compare it with yours. That's all for this lecture, and see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Hello and welcome back to our course on Microsoft Project. In the previous lecture, we have entered our activities. Now it is time to set up their dependencies. In order to do this, there are several methods again. In this lecture, I will teach you all of these methods. After learning all of them, just do whichever seems easier to you. In this lecture, you will not only learn how to create the relationships between activities, but also the methodology behind creating the relationships. If you follow me step by step here in this lecture and the following resource assignment lectures in the future, you will not have any over-allocation problem. You may apply this methodology to any kind of project, no matter if it is an ID project, construction project, or etc. Okay then, let's start to the lecture. First of all, I will expand this table in order to see more columns. I will just hover on this line, left click and hold, and drag it to the right a little bit. As you see, now we can see more columns. What I would like to do now is, I would like to add the successor column right behind the predecessor column. Let's right click on the column right behind the predecessor column. Select the Insert Column option. Now we have the list of available columns. Let's find the successor and select it. As you see, now we have a new column named Successors. If you want to change the position of this column, just click on it once, then click and hold the left button of the mouse and drag it wherever you want. I would like to see it right behind the predecessor column. Therefore, I will drag it back to its first position again. Now, we will link all of the activities together. Linking the activities depends on the conditions of the project. If we have one team for a specific work, for example, we cannot start the next activity before completing the first one. Therefore, when we link these activities, we need to establish a finish to start connection between these activities. But if we have two or more different teams for that work, one team may start to work at one location and other teams may start to work at other locations at the same time. Therefore, we may establish start-to-start link instead of finish-to-start link. Or in some conditions, we don't even need to establish any connection between these activities. Please don't think that this is because our project is a construction project. This applies to all kinds of projects. One team or one resource may only start and work for only one activity. For our project, we will assume we have only one team for each activity except for concrete works. For the concrete works, we have two different teams. Let's start to link the activities to see the difference. Since we have only one team, excavation work of building B may start only after excavation work of building A finishes. Therefore, we need to make a finish to start connection between these activities. To do that, I click on the excavation work of building A, hold the Ctrl key down, and then click on the excavation work of building B. By doing so, we have selected both of the activities. On the Task tab on the ribbon, in the Schedule group, there is a button looks like a chain. When we hover on that, it says Link the selected tasks. Let's click on this button. Now, what happened? In the successor cell of excavation work of building A, we have 5. This means now the 5th task is the successor of this activity. In the predecessor cell of excavation work of building B, we have 3. This means now the 3rd task is the predecessor of this activity. As you see, in the Gantt chart, there is a little arrow between these activities. This represents the link between these two activities. Second activity may start after first activity finishes. Also, the start and finish dates of these activities are changed. First activity starts on 16th of March and ends on the 16th of March. Since second activity starts after the first one finishes, it starts on the 17th of March and ends on the 17th of March. When we make MS Project to calculate the durations, these start and finish dates of all activities will change. Now, let's continue to link the activities together. First floor concrete works of building A may only start after excavation work of building A finishes. Therefore, we need a finish to start relationship between these two. Let's select both activities and then click on the link button. As you see, successor cell of first activity becomes 5,9. This means after completing this task, 5th and 9th activities may start. Comma is used to separate the tasks. Second floor concrete works of building A may start after first floor concrete works of building A finishes. let's select both of them. Then click on the link button. As you know, we have more relationship types instead of finish to start kind of relationship. For example, 2 or more activities may start at the same time. Therefore, we may need a start-to-start relationship between these activities. And also, we may want to add lag or lead times to those activities. So, how can we do that in Microsoft Project? In order to answer this question, let's assume that our first floor walls of Building A may start 10 days after starting of first floor concrete works. This means we need a start-to-start link with 10 days of lag. To do that, we again select both of the activities and click on the link button. Then double-click on the arrow between these two. As you see, a box named Task Dependency is opened. Click on the box saying Finish to Start. Change it as Start to Start. Now, click inside the lag box and type 10. Then click on OK. Let's see what happened. Successor cell of first floor concrete works of Building A becomes 10,12 SS plus 10 days. This is 10th activity may start after this activity finishes and 12th activity may start 10 days after this activity starts. As you see, predecessor of first floor walls became 9 SS plus 10 days. This means this activity may start 10 days after starting 9th task. Second floor walls of Building A may only start after first floor walls of Building A finishes. This time, we will establish this link with a different way. I click on the successor cell of first floor walls and type 13. When I click on the Enter key, we have our finish to start relationship between these two activities. Let's say first floor of plastering works may start 7 days after beginning of first floor walls. Therefore, we need a start to start relationship with a 7-day lag. Just click on the successor cell of first floor walls activity. Click one more time on right behind 13 so that writing cursor appears. Add a comma first and type 15 SS plus 7. Click on Enter key. Now, first floor walls of Building A has a start to start relationship with 15 task, which is the first floor plastering works of Building A activity. And there is a 7 days of lag. This time, we will enter two relationships at the same time. Let's say second floor plastering works of Building A may only start after first floor plastering works finishes. And first floor painting works may start after first floor plastering works finishes. In order to establish these relationships, click on the successor cell of first floor plastering works activity and type 16,18. As you see, we have established the connections. You may use the predecessor cell instead of successor cell to establish the links. For example, let's say second floor painting works may start after first floor painting works finish. Let's click on the predecessor cell of second floor painting works and type 18. Click on the Enter key. As you see, we have just established a finish to start type of relationship between these two activities. Now, we will establish a relationship by a different method. Assume that first floor doors and windows activity can start after first floor plastering works are completed. And we also want painting works of first floor to start 3 days after beginning of first floor doors and windows. It sounds complicated, but don't worry, it is not that complicated. First, we will establish the link between first floor plastering works and first floor doors and windows. We want a finish to start relationship with 0 lags between them. In order to do that, I double click on first floor doors and windows of Building A to open the task information box. Now, click on the Predecessors tab inside of this box. Here, we can establish the relationship. Click on the task name of the first row. As you see, a small black triangle appears. Click on this triangle. Here is the list of activities of our project. Just find and select the activity named First Floor Plastering Works of Building A. As you see, its ID also appeared automatically. We can change the type of relationship and amount of lag here. But since we want a finish to start relationship with 0 lag, we don't make any change here. Click on OK. Now, we are done with the link between first floor doors and windows and plastering works. Let's establish the other link. Double click on the first floor painting works of Building A. As you see, since we have worked with Predecessors tab on our last work, this tab is open and we don't need to click on it again. We see that this activity already has a link between another activity. Since we want to establish another link, we just click on the task name cell of the second row. Click on the black triangle. Select first floor doors and windows of Building A. Since we want a start-to-start relationship with 3 days lag, click on the type cell of the second row and change the relationship type as start to start. Now, click on the lag and type 3. Click on OK. As you see, we have established that link easily. Let's establish a link again with another method. We want second floor doors and windows of Building A to start after first floor doors and windows finishes. To do that, select both activities. Now, hold on the Ctrl key and click on the F2 button. As you see, now we have a finish to start link between these two activities. We will establish another link with this method again. We want roof construction of building A to start after second floor concrete works of building A. Let's select both activities. Click and hold on Ctrl and then click on F2. As you see, it is easy. At the very beginning of this section, we said we had only one team for each activity except for concrete works. For concrete works, we have two separate teams. Therefore, we can start concrete works of building A and building B at the same time. But in order to start other activities of building B, activities of building A should finish first. I will create only the relationships of concrete works and walls right now, and then leave the rest to you as a homework assignment. Double-click on the first floor concrete works of building B. In the Predecessors tab, we will establish our relationships. In order to first floor concrete works start, excavation works of building B should be finished. Therefore, I need finish to start relationship between these two. Click on the task name and select excavation work of building B. Click on OK. Since we have two separate teams for concrete works, we don't need any link between building A for concrete works. But since we cannot start second floor concrete works before first floor ends, we need a link between these two. Just type 27 in the predecessor cell of second floor. While creating the relationships for building A, we said first floor walls of building B could start 10 days after starting of first floor walls. We will establish the same relationship for building B. Let's click on the predecessor cell of first floor walls and type 27 SS plus 10. I don't click on enter since we have not been done yet. Since we have only one team for this activity, first floor walls of building B has to wait for walls of building A to finish. Therefore, I type a comma and write 11 and click on OK. Did you notice what we just did? We have created a link between first floor walls of building B activity and walls of building A group. Yes, we can establish relationships between an activity and a group of activities. Actually, no matter if it is a group of activities or just one activity, we can establish relationships between every task in our project. Okay, now let's turn back to walls of building B again. Since second floor walls of building B can start after first floor walls activity finishes, just type 30 to the predecessor cell of second floor. I leave the rest of the relationships as a homework assignment. Please create the relationships by yourself. While creating them, make the same assumptions we did in the building A. Don't forget, you not only need to create the relationships of building B itself, but also need to think about the themes we have and establish the relationships according to this. Assume backfilling and landscaping work activities start after each building's construction works finish. I mean, backfilling and landscaping works of building B should start after completion of construction work of building B, and backfilling and landscaping works of building A should start after completion of construction works of building A. You may find and download the solution in the inside of the next lecture. Thanks for watching. See you in the next lecture. Welcome back to our course on Microsoft Project. In the previous lecture, we have established the relationships between activities. Now it is time to enter their man-hours. As we said before in the lectures, we will make Microsoft Project to calculate the durations automatically. As the first step for that, we need to enter the man-hours of each activity. First, we will add the work column. I want to add this column right behind the successors column. Right-click on the column right behind the successors column. Select Insert Column. Find the work column and click on it. We will enter the man-hours or machine hours here in this column for each activity. Before doing that, let me explain what a man-hour or machine hour is. Let's say we are making a table and 2 workers are needed to work for 2 days in order to make this table. If we assume that they are working 9 hours in a day, it will take them 18 hours to complete the table. 18 hours for one worker plus 18 hours for other worker makes 36 hours of work totally. Therefore, we say that in order to make a table, 36 man-hours are needed. If you want to make 5 tables, we will need 180 man-hours, which is the result of 5 times 36. In order to make this table, if we use machines instead of workers, then we will say, in order to make a table, we will need this amount of machine hours. Therefore, if we calculate the work amount of workers, we use the term man-hours. And if we calculate the amount of machines, we use the term machine hours. After giving this short information, let's enter the amount of man-hours and machine hours of the activities in our project. As a general term, we can use work hours instead of man-hours or machine hours. This is why the name of this column is work. Let's say we need 45 work hours for excavation work of building A. Just click on the work cell of this activity and type 45 and click on enter. As you see, working hours of excavation works of building A group and excavation works group have also changed. You may think that, how do we know the total amount of work hours needed for each activity? If you are working for a big company, probably they will have this data from past projects. If your company doesn't have such a database, you will need to find it by yourself by asking to the chiefs of that work. They probably know how many workers needed for how many days for that activity, and by using this information, you can calculate the total work hours of each activity. Let's say we will need 45 hours to complete the excavation work of building B activity. Let's see what happens after entering this value. As you see, total working hours of excavation works group became 90 hours, which is the summation of 45 and 45. Let's enter the rest of the work hours. Assume we need 1800 man-hours for first floor and second floor concrete works of building A. We need 675 work hours for each floor for walls. 540 work hours for plastering work activities. Again, 540 work hours for painting work activities. 252 work days is needed for doors and windows. 450 work days for roof construction of building A. Since we have two similar buildings, we will enter the same amounts for building B. 1800 hours for concrete works, 675 hours for walls, 540 hours for plastering works and painting works, 252 hours for doors and windows, and finally 450 hours for roof construction. Assume we will need 225 working hours for backfilling and landscaping works. Now we are done with our working hours. As you see, although we know the work hours needed for each activity and each activity group, we don't see the total work hours needed to complete our project. To do that, we need to make the project summary task visible. Click on the File tab, then select the options. Click on the Advanced Settings. Here, scroll down a little bit and find the display options for this project. You see, there is a checkbox saying Show Project Summary Task. Click on here and then click on OK. As you see, now we have our summary task. We can see the total duration of our project, start and finish dates, and total work hours of our project here in this task. We can also change the name of the project here. To do that, click on the summary task once, then click on it one more time so that writing cursor appears, and change the name as Microsoft Project Course. Click on Enter. Now, we are done with this section. See you in the next one.